Color is dangerous. I know that might sound like a strange thing to say, especially when it comes to drawing or painting as it is here, but it's true. I often used to tell my students that if you can't make it work quite yet in black and white, that you're probably not ready for color. And I think that holds true in most cases. Color is exciting. It can be exhilarating even, something that pulls you into a piece or makes it worth doing. I love working with color, especially limited palettes, avoiding things like green because green is so difficult to manage. But color, like most tools, carries with it some risks. If you don't work out the stuff that needs to be worked out before color, your values, the lighting, how things function, color will not save you. But color is fun, and it's beautiful, and it adds a different aspect to things. Even if you use just a single color instead of black and white, if you do your entire painting in red, for example, there's something about it that feels different. We as humans gravitate towards colors. In most cases, we as a group develop terms for black and white very early, followed quickly by green to describe the natural world around us, then red usually for senses of panic, pain, blood, or wounds. Ironically, blue seems to be one of the last colors ever developed in any language. I've done some mild quantities of research into this, but it seems that in a lot of ancient texts, things that we think of as being blue, like the water, the seas, the ocean, are often referred to as green. It's an interesting concept, isn't it? That our language, the words that we use and that we have at our disposal, largely inform how we look at the world around us. So whether you decide to embark on the dangerous journey of using color today, or you're going to stay where it's safe and use just black and white, I hope that you'll work on something while I paint these cute, beautiful little birds today. I didn't necessarily plan on starting my talk concerned with color, but I was struck by the nature of these paintings by themselves. On prior pages, I did work in a single color. I did a crane and another kind of bird, I can't remember at the time, that was done entirely with a single tone each. One was with reds and one was with blues. And they're fun. I enjoy working on them that way. And when you do that, you eliminate some of the factors. On the bird on the left here, for example, so much of it is actually just black and white, but then those browns, those umbers, they really bring it to life and they make it a little bit more intriguing. And color is just a tool for getting our point across, whatever that point might be, but it can be dangerous. I ran into this a lot with my students when I was in the classroom, specifically with middle school students, when they would go to paint landscapes. So many were so used to just grabbing the color that they needed from a container and then moving forward. And yet most would find that if they did that with green, that the color would fail to live up to their expectations. So we had a lot of conversations about this, and this is actually where one of my classroom rules comes from, which is that color is dangerous. And that discussion was essentially, there are so many greens in the natural world, that what are the chances that that green straight from the container, straight from the tube, is the exact green you're looking for? It's very, very limited. There aren't necessarily a ton of reds that we see in the same capacity that there are for greens. In fact, blue is a very uncommon color in the natural world. Think of how many blue foods there actually are. Even things like blueberries and blackberries could be considered deep violets if you really look at them. But green is a difficult color to work with. In fact, anytime I do landscape paintings, I'm always subconsciously stressed about the greens and about getting them to do what I want them to do. And I nail it maybe a third of the time. I, for a long time in my classroom, didn't even keep green paint. I kept yellows and blues of various hues. Didn't intend for that to rhyme, but it's kind of cute. And the students had to make all their own greens. Only when I accidentally ordered green or somebody else ordered supplies for me did I have green on hand. This was not because green paint is evil or it's detrimental, but it was to teach my students that You're going to get more accurate greens if you really think about what the green is beforehand. If you try to make it yourself, then you understand whether it's got a high quantity of blue, a high quantity of yellow, or whether there's subtle notes of brown and red in it. Now, eventually, as with many things, as I continued to teach, I tried to work against some of my natural pride. I allowed the students to have green paint, and I just spent a lot more time talking about how you shouldn't use the green paint straight out of the container, how you should always add something to it, because the chances that that green from the container is exactly the green you need, those chances are just so astronomically low. So that became the way that I move forward, and I actually do that a lot now in my own work. For a long time, I did not allow myself to use green paint at home. Now I do. I've got about 3 or 4 different greens, and some of them are lovely and cut through a lot of work that I have to do. But there's still a lot of truth in the fact that working with greens from the container is very scary and very difficult. It never seems to be exactly the green that you want. Are all colors this way? I don't think so. I think that most other colors, especially blues, seem to be a little bit easier to work with. Bright reds, even if you over-accentuate them, just kind of make things more interesting. The brown tones on the bird on the left, for example, are probably more vibrant than the reference photo was, but they work. They work just fine. It's a cute little fluffy bird. But if the greens were incorrect, if I had plants in the background, we would notice. And we would notice quickly. I guess if there's anything to take from this, it's probably 2 individual points. 1, give yourself a break when it comes to using color because it is difficult. And if you feel bad or awkward because you struggle to pin down the exact tone that you need, just understand that it's difficult. It is quite hard. People spend their whole painting careers trying to figure out how to make exact tones. In high school, we used to have adventures where we would color match something in Photoshop, but then before we would look at what it was, we would try to figure out what the components were and how to actually make it. It was fun and kind of helped with our understanding of what colors were and how to get there. That is one thing. The other is to remember that color is just a tool. And if that tool helps you to achieve what you want to achieve with your artwork, then use it. And that means that you don't have to focus on making the colors exact. Often, exaggerating colors is one of the wonderful things that makes a painting different than a photograph. Especially in the world that we have right now, where photographs are so easy to make. We all have cameras in our phones now, on our computers, on our iPads, which is still a little crazy to me, who grew up in the 80s and 90s when digital cameras were absolutely atrocious. But we have access to photographs, and in my mind, that makes photographs a little less special. They're easy to take, they're easy to get, but a painting is still just as special as it always was, because a painting translates reality onto a page, onto a surface of some kind. And so the colors are never going to be exact unless that's your express purpose. And if that is your express purpose, then, more power to you. I find that completely photorealistic paintings and drawings are impressive, but often lack beauty. Some beauty comes from the human hand and from the imperfections that appear on that page or on that canvas. And part of that imperfection, if you want to call it that, is the exaggeration of color. Color is a wonderful, beautiful thing that we get to access and that changes our perspective on the things that we look at. And it is a gift that we get to put it down. It's kind of a fun thing that we're not stuck with just pencils and pens, right? That we have pigmentation that we can apply to things. I don't know, it's just enjoyable. And although I often work in just black and white, as you've probably seen on a lot of my sketchbook sessions, I really do enjoy working with color. And specifically, I really enjoy working with paint. This is watercolor here. I don't do a lot of my sketchbook sessions in watercolor these days, though I kind of just follow the whims. I do whatever feels right to me at the moment when I'm working on sketchbook stuff. This was from a session where I was sitting at the gallery waiting for people to come in to see if anybody was interested in any artwork that day. And so I was working on these little paintings that I started on a vacation a couple weeks earlier. These are fun. I did this one in basically one sitting. I believe at the beginning I had already done the sketch and maybe the background for it, but I did this over the course of about an hour. And I'm going to have it kind of clipped together here so you don't have to sit and watch my slow movements, but I'm actually not going to speed this one up. I'm going to keep it just at my real time. And you can see how slow and methodical some of my paint strokes are. Watercolor is an intimidating media for some people, but I love it. I find it quite enjoyable, and it's just a different thing. It's so imprecise and different than the ink that I spend most of my time working with. And that's good. It's good for us as artists, I think, to do things that are widely divergent from one another, because there's just so many different aspects to this thing. It's kind of fun watching the shadows and the shapes and everything come into being as I look at this. Well, this has been a little bit of a different sketchbook session. Not only the media, but also the discussion about the terrors of color. If you've enjoyed the sketchbook session, please consider liking, and if you're still here and not subscribed, that would be lovely as well. If you're looking for an artistic community, I would encourage you to check out our Discord server, which is linked in the description below. We are a small community who works on weekly drawing prompts and studies, and we just kind of give each other some feedback on our work, as well as just being a community for the strange creatures that call themselves artists. Thank you to patron Who, What, Where, When for your support. And if you're looking to support the channel, you can do so through the Patreon link below. I hope this was helpful for you. I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a good one, y'all. See you soon.